Canada was a bastion of diversity and tolerance and reasonable accommodation. So why is it that Starbucks is now bringing its virtue-signaling kabuki dance to our great dominion? So late last month, some 8,000 U.S. corporate Starbucks stores closed for an entire day, undoubtedly sending thousands of hipsters into the arms of grief counselors for having to endure the indignity of sipping Java at decidedly down-market Dunkin' Donuts franchises. But the Starbucks rank and file allegedly needed sensitivity training, you see. This was thanks to two men being arrested at a Philadelphia Starbucks after refusing to leave the store when asked to do so. Here's what we know for sure about that incident. These were not paying customers. They asked to use the washroom. They were denied access. They were eventually asked to leave. They would not leave. The police were called and they were charged with trespassing. Oh, I almost forgot. The men were black, so this was promptly spin-doctored as being an act of racism. I mean, what else could it be, right? But even if you believe that getting law enforcement involved was maybe a bit of an overreaction, the fact remains that a cafe, even a hippy-dippy social justice joint like Starbucks, is private property. And when someone, especially someone who loiters without so much as spending a buck at a Starbucks, assuming anything actually costs as little as a buck there, well, when you're asked to vamoose, then you really should vamoose. And so it was that thanks to Starbucks' touchy-feely CEO, Kevin Johnson, all the U.S. company-run stores were closed for a May Day session in which bigoted baristas could receive sensitivity training. But if Canadians were feeling smug about this story, based on the idea that racism, subtle or otherwise, is really an American thing, well, not so fast, bucko, because this coming Monday, it will be lights out for Canadian Starbucks stores, too. Who knew that white privilege abounds in the great white north as well? But I don't get it. Haven't we all been led to believe that the USA is the melting pot, whereas we're that highfalutin multicultural mosaic? Sort of like a certain Disneyland ride. As an aside, folks, if you're harboring any dark thoughts of taking leave of your mortal coil, avoid the It's a Small World ride at all costs. But I digress. In any event, there's a gushing article in the trade magazine Strategy about how closing Canuck Starbucks for a day is the right thing to do. The article quotes Wojtek Dabrowski, a crisis management expert, and I believe a former character from that 70s TV show, Barney Miller. He says, quote, "I think Starbucks gets an A+ for the move," end quote. Wojtek further notes that it's important for the chain to show that racial bias training is an enterprise-wide priority. Gee, who knew that your local Starbucks was staffed by so many KKK operatives? Okay, time to cut through all this feel-good crapola here and talk about the real reason for all these sensitivity training sessions, which is this. This is all about Starbucks covering its corporate arse next time there is a perceived racial breach at one of its cafes. Thus, if a visible minority, be they homeless or mentally disturbed or just someone with a chip on their shoulder, is acting belligerently and really needs to be dealt with, and if that incident somehow turns into yet another PR nightmare thanks to the race card being played, well, Starbucks corporate can now say this: hey folks, this isn't our fault. We took a multi-million-dollar hit in order to train all our employees not to act like Klansmen. So what occurred here was obviously due to the actions of a rogue employee who obviously didn't get the memo. In other words, folks, it's all about curtailing liability, as well as CEO Johnson protecting his squeaky clean progressive persona. But you know, there's an unfortunate and unsavory result in Starbucks' new incarnation as a sanctuary coffee shop chain. And it's this: far from being a safe haven, some Starbucks have turned into dangerous realms. A Fox News report quoted a Starbucks employee who works at a store in Chicago saying They hate the new policy because the store bathrooms have turned into a hub for drug activity. Quote, "We haven't been allowed to change our bathroom code since April, so almost all the junkies and homeless people know the code now. About once a week, we find needles, drug baggies, blood all over the toilet or wall," end quote. Nice. Meanwhile, the Wall Street Journal reported how a Starbucks employee was pricked by a needle that was left behind in a blood-spattered bathroom. Lovely. So pray for those Starbucks workers who must now clean up ghastly messes thanks to this coffee shop embracing the slogan, "No one is illegal." And that's the thing, isn't it? Secure in their ivory towers, the likes of CEO Johnson and PR consultant Dabrowski, well, they'll never be called upon to clean up the downright dangerous messes left behind at Starbucks restrooms. After all, better the company throw its own employees under the bus rather than being perceived as politically incorrect. For the Rebel.media, I'm David the Menzoid Menzies. Hey folks, the Rebel has a brand new app. Please download that app and take the Rebel with you wherever you go.